Hi, I'm Kim Smith, and this is my response video to a teacher interview I conducted with a first grade teacher here in my small town of Wellsville. And there are two reasons why I chose this particular teacher. The first reason is that she teaches first grade, and that's kind of the age group that I'd like to focus my career on. I love to create experiences for young children that they can discover, explore, and think creatively. And seeing little aha moments go off while you're teaching them reading, writing, and math, and knowing that you've impacted their future in a positive way is very fulfilling for me. The second reason I chose this particular teacher is because I've had the opportunity to step into her classroom as a substitute and as a parent. And I know that her classroom is very well organized, that her lesson plans are very detailed, and that the kids in our classroom are very well behaved. She has very little discipline problems. So I was kind of excited to step in and ask her some questions to get inside of her head and figure out how she sets the foundation for such a positive learning environment throughout the year. I was not surprised at all by who this teacher is. She's a veteran teacher, teaching for almost 12 years, and she teaches for the right reasons. Her interest is in the kids and the kids alone, and what helps them motivates her. I love sitting down with her, and here are some things that we talked about during our interview. I asked her what her most challenging experience was within the classroom, and she said that consistently it's actually working with the adults. It's not the kids at all, because kids, you can explain why they need to respect you. With adults, you can't really do that. And she said if she had to choose a challenging experience with a child, it would be having a severely autistic child in the inclusion program within her classroom for extended periods of the day. He was nonverbal. She had no experience with extreme autism. She had no training for this child. So everything that she did was done through trial and error and internet research she did on after hours. And so when you have a classroom of like 20 kids and you're trying to figure out what works for one, it's just difficult to keep the balance and the flow of the classroom. And that was the most challenging year she's had so far. I asked her if she thought her college experience prepared her well for the classroom, and she said foundationally, yes. Knowledge. In the knowledge department, yes, she knew exactly what she needed to do to teach. She wished she would have had more hands-on experience within the classroom. She said there are some things you just can't learn from books. You need to be in the classroom doing and learning that way a little bit more. And she didn't feel like the college experience she had actually did that. She also wished she would have taken more special ed courses so she would have been more prepared for all the inclusion students that she has in her classrooms. I asked her to name some specific motivational strategies that she uses to get students excited about learning. And she said that she always tries to figure out what the buy-in for that particular standard is. How does it apply to the kids' world? And she tries to figure out a way to teach it that has the kids participating and knowing that they can take it out in their real life and actually use the skill that they're trying to teach. She said that also setting up steady, clear expectations is her number one goal, because if the kids know what's expected of them, it motivates them to try to reach that expectation. I asked her what techniques she uses to keep students actively involved during the lesson, and she said she likes to use a lot of movement. When they see it and they hear it and they do it, they're more apt to remember and be actively involved in the lessons. She likes to use games to help create a healthy competition, because when the kids are competing against one another, they want to try to do their best so that they can beat out their neighbors. She says that if she notices a child that starts to wander off from the lesson, to bring them back, she might ask them a question or walk closely to the desk and put the hand on the desk so that child comes back into focus with what they are doing. I asked how she applies technology to enhance daily instruction and increase her students' learning, and also asked what activities that technology has replaced. And her answer kind of was the same for both. And that was the fact that she is really limited to what she can use computers for, because in reality she has 4 computers and 22 students. So she can't really use it as a whole group instruction thing. She uses it for her personal benefit, to go out and find ideas on the internet and connect with other teachers to gain insight. She uses her 4 computers for reading comprehension. They participate in a reading program called Accelerator Reading, where kids read books and then take comprehension tests on the computer, and they earn points and earn rewards throughout the year based upon their reading comprehension goals. But she said in reality, when you go to college, they say make it relevant, make technology a real part of your classroom. Make it relevant, make it relevant. She said, but in the real world, you have to work with what you've been given. So she uses her computers mainly just as a reinforcer to something that she's already taught instead of using her computers to actually teach. I asked her how she goes about planning a unit, and she walked me through 5 different steps that she always takes into consideration when she's planning a whole unit. The first thing she does is she looks at the standards that's expected from the state, and before she meets with her collaborating teachers. After they know what the standards are, they meet together and they have a brainstorming session where they fill in a planning sheet that they have that's the same for every unit. And on the planning sheet, it has every single learning style listed of the kids that are in their particular classrooms. And then these teachers sit down, look at the standard, brainstorm ideas, and start plugging in activities that they make sure hits at least every single learning style in their classroom. They said that it's their goal to make sure every child does an activity in their class that they will remember in a real way. Once their planning sheets are filled out, they do all the prep work for the activities, and then they organize it into day-by-day files, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so that then on Monday all they have to do is come in and pull that file and everything they need for the day is right there. After they teach the lesson, they sit down together and figure out what worked and what didn't, make little notes, and they stick it in the file for the next year so that they have some knowledge behind the activities that they did. I asked her how closely she followed her lesson plans, and she said she follows them extremely close. It's important to stay on task to her, and she said, I don't refer to my lesson plans. I don't go over and read it and make sure that I'm doing everything that I had written down because I instinctively know how I want to teach the lessons that I teach, but I do stick to my lesson plans because I feel like when you stay on task, kids benefit. And I asked her, what are some of the considerations you make when planning your lessons? And she said, even though I've been teaching for 12 years, I very rarely teach the same lesson twice. Saying that she gets to know the students in her classroom and what works for them, and she custom tailors her lessons to fit the needs of that particular group. So she says you always have to be thinking about the different learning styles and the kids in your class to best fit their needs. I asked her what kind of rules she has in her classrooms and how she establishes those rules. And she said her rules are pretty basic. It's based on respect. She says to the students, don't do anything that is disrespectful to me, disrespectful to your classmates, or disrespectful to our school. And the first 2 weeks, she spends in detail talking about what respect is, how you respect one another. They practice it, they write about it, and she uses a book called Chrysanthemum. The whole first week, she reads it every single day that week, and each day she pulls a different respect issue from the book, and the kids practice it. And by day 5, she said that the expectation for respect has been set, and there are no more warnings after day 5. And she says it's amazing to watch the kids take that and run with it. They are very respectful after that week, and she just has to have little reminders here and there, but it works well. I asked her what she felt was the most important factors in classroom control, and she said number 1 is having a routine from the moment those kids walk in the door to the moment they walk out. She said routines help take away that downtime that kids sometimes find things to do that aren't so appropriate. She says if they have something to do and they know what's expected, then they'll do that instead of the inappropriate behavior. She said never give in by bending rules for one child. And she said to figure out how to reason with the kids through the consequences and talk to them about what they did wrong and how they're going to do it differently next time. And she said to always follow up with a child who's had to suffer some consequences with caring words and the fact that you believe in them so that they can come back the next day and have a new beginning. And she said number 5 is always remember that every day is a new day. Never get discouraged and know that children can change. I asked her to describe her philosophy regarding discipline, and she once again reiterated how much routine and setting clear-cut, steady expectations how far it goes in the realm of discipline. She said when you study the expectations and you set it before the kids and you have a routine, you're kind of planning your way out of discipline problems. She said if a child is not listening or being respectful, I usually remind them of the classroom jobs that they have. She said, I always tell the kids that my job is to teach, your job is to listen and learn. So all I have to do is say, are you doing your job? And usually that'll get them back on task. I asked her if there are any materials that you have used that you find are useful for slow learners or bright students, and she said that she uses ability group center time so that kids are doing the lesson in their ability. Slower learners need a lot of repetition, a lot of visuals, and a lot of auditory. She has to tie in all three things for lessons for them. She says her brighter students she makes into peer tutors within the classroom, or she has them help her on certain tasks. I asked her how she stays current in her field, and she says she attends workshops, she reads emails, she talks to other teachers outside of her district. In fact, that is probably her most valuable resources, is teachers that teach the same grade level in other districts. I asked her what kind of person she likes to work for, and she said a person that respects her enough to not ask her to do something they aren't willing to do herself. And so she said that she likes people who allow her to flourish in her own strengths, and that they can admit their own weakness and surrounds themselves with people who are strong in areas that they are weak to help maintain a standard of excellence throughout the entire school. I asked her what kind of people are difficult to work with and why, and she said that people who can admit they are wrong are very difficult people to work with. And last but not least, why do you enjoy teaching the most? And she said, because kids make me feel young again. Watching them smile just brightens my day, knowing that I've impacted their future and opened new doors for their future through teaching them to read was very fulfilling for her, and she can't see herself doing anything else. She said, God designed me to teach, so I teach. This interview was an outstanding time for me and her to sit down, and I've learned a lot of good things from her, and I've taken some key foundations from her, knowing that expectations is key. I hope you enjoyed watching.